G'day, g'day.
That's very Australian.
Welcome to Sunday. We're the Aussie Infinite people.
Yeah, welcome back. So, we thought today we'd just wrap up on what we've been talking about, the 5 aspects, I guess, of the ego and what it's looking for in the external world. And so we've 5 of the 5 that we've been talking about is acknowledgement, achievement, acceptance, recognition, and security.
So we've got into the comments now while we...
Yes, I can come up on the screen so you can see them. So we've done a bit of a deep dive into the security one. That's where we talked quite a lot about money, and then we also looked at other aspects of security as well. So we've done a couple of different talks around that one, a deep dive, and acknowledgement as well. We dove in quite deep around that and how that shows up. So the other 3 that we sort of have touched on them a little bit anyway. They all kind of intermingle quite a bit as well, as you probably have seen. Sometimes there's multiple feelings that the ego is searching for in the world. So we're still talking about acceptance, achievement, and recognition. So, yeah, so Nat's got them up there on the screen. They're the ones that we're...
Yep.
So, yeah. So,
yeah, cool. Sorry, I missed all that because I was trying to type with my 2 fingers. Still type with 2 fingers.
We've got acceptance, achievement, and recognition. We've sort of touched on them a little bit, but we can probably... just do a little bit of a dive into them quickly and wrap them up. I think we have kind of covered them off.
Yeah, and I think acknowledgement and recognition are quite similar to each other.
Yeah.
You know, sort of really wanting to be appreciated more than anything. And I think the whole thing about all of these really, and the point that we're trying to make, is that your human self is looking for love. Like, it looks for love all the time. We are totally 100% programmed for that. And that comes, funnily enough, from our infinite self, because you are love. So then we come to a human form, a human self, and we're still looking for that. Forgetting, you know, who we truly are is love. We then start seeking it in the outside world. So we're not doing anything wrong.
No.
The ego's not doing anything wrong. It's actually just looking for itself.
Yes.
But then what happens is we start looking for these things in the outside world, thinking that's where we're going to find it. So we want a relationship because, our partner will make us feel appreciated and loved and recognized, and that's what we ask of our partners, you know. And when they're not giving that, we either leave if we get jack of it after a while, or we end up in arguments about that, like, oh, you never recognize about what I do, sort of thing. I'm always asking you. I was just having this conversation about Mandy. You're always asking about what I'm always asking you about your day and how you're going and all that sort of stuff. You never really take an interest in what I'm doing, type thing. Okay, you may not understand it, but you don't really take even an interest in it. So it's sort of like, where's my recognition and my acknowledgement type thing? I'm looking for that. So then when I don't get in my relationship, I'm going to go somewhere else looking for it. That might be in another partner. You might end up having an affair because you're looking so much for those things that your partner's not giving you. You start seeking it in someone else. Or you might seek it in your job. How many people go and just work crazy hours, and when you dive underneath it, it's totally inspired about working for this company and having this thing. It's actually because they are getting acknowledgement or recognition from a really good boss. Their boss is a great boss and they always acknowledge it. I'm not getting it home, so I'm just going to work more hours because I get it there. So then you can start to see, like, all these play-outs of things, like all the game at play type thing of where you're trying to get different things, and they do fall into these 5 categories.
Yes.
Pretty much put all of them into these 5 categories.
Yes.
And you can start to see you make decisions based on, like, those minute decisions of, no, I'm not going to go home tonight for dinner with, you know, my husband or my wife. I'm going to stay at work for an extra couple of hours. Like, just those minute decisions are the things that actually start driving everything. And then you have problems at home, you know, as a result of that, because, you know, your partner's like, you never hear type thing. And it's like, it's because of that. And then you come up with other reasons of why not actually acknowledging what's really going on underneath is that you're getting recognition at work and not at home. So
that could be an avoidance too of looking at what's actually happening too, because when you go home, it's probably a reminder of the recognition that you're not getting or the acknowledgement that you're not getting. And so you'd rather just not put yourself in that situation. So you tell yourself that, oh, I'm just going to work more. So this is probably completely unconscious, you know, what you're, how it's actually showing up. But if you really look at it, it's just like you might be actually avoiding certain situations because it's just that painful reminder that you can't get what you're seeking, that the ego is looking for this thing in the external world because it thinks it's separate. It can't find this safety and security within itself, within yourself. So,
but it's good because it can work to your advantage too. Mandy and I have worked with hundreds of people over the years in different scenarios, and it's, you know, where you see them really shine in their work now and in their passion, like they've really gone out and found their passion and what they really want to do in life, and they're doing amazing at it because they didn't have that at home. So it actually drove them to really seek that out in their work and express that now, because, or in their kids, you know, they're raising their kids totally different to the way that their kids were, like they were raised as a child, because they do not want to have that same experience for their own child. So it can definitely work to your advantage. And I guess it's about identifying where does it work to your advantage, and you're actually using these things, the ego drivers, to what you want to create, rather than actually being controlled by them. And as Mandy said, almost avoiding a lot of stuff because you don't want to face it. And you're telling yourself a whole bunch of stories, like, for example, like that example I just had, where you're not going home at night, you're staying in the office type thing, and then you're having problems at home, but you're coming out with a whole bunch of stories about why you're more in the office type thing. You're not actually acknowledging what's really going on, the fact that, you know, your partner is not actually giving you what you want. And it's not like, oh, we needed more money this week, or like all this stuff. You know, we've got projects on. It's going to be different by the end of the financial year. I've just got to work a lot right now. So all this stuff comes up, all these little storylines start feeding in, and the whole time it's just been sitting underneath it is this actual real reason of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's where it can play out too, is like, because you might have that, we talked about the security thing the other day and how that can show up a lot with the whole money story that we play out, that you might legitimately feel like that you are working to support your family. So that feels like, well, I am doing this for you, but that it's just that underneath it, there might be this other thing that's kind of, you know, this avoidance game that's kind of playing as well, not really facing up to what's kind of going on, or not sort of really acknowledging, okay, maybe there is part of me that's really looking for this recognition and I'm not getting it at home, so therefore I'm going to search for it in my business. And if I feel like I'm making an X amount of dollars, then I feel like I've achieved something. So that's where, this is where they can be multi-layered, like, and they often are all going, you know, at the same time. So it's just anything outside of you externally looking for it to fill that void is always coming from the ego, and you'll never be satisfied. That's the funny thing at the end of the day. It's just you might reach a sort of level of happiness, but there is an underlying sort of empty void sometimes that you just still feel like, you still think, oh, I thought I feel different when I got this thing that I really thought I wanted. And then the flip side of what that scenario that you just shared too is like probably the partner that is at home and maybe is on your back about, oh, you're always at work and you're not here and this and that. They're probably also feeling, you know, that lack of acknowledgement and recognition. So they've got their own thing going on as well. So there is this interplay then that goes on with the dynamic, you know, particularly in relationships around that too, that they feed off each other. You know, you're looking for it in each other, and if you're not providing it, then that's where it arcs up and people have problems, or they leave a relationship, or they have an affair, or rather than deal with the actual issue that's going on.
I had something, just second point. What was the point before the one you just made? So I had something come up that I was like, oh, it's just
about the partner at home, or
no, the one before that.
Being maybe the story that you have running around, you're doing it for a sense of achievement.
Achievement, yeah, it was about that. It was what was the point I was going to make?
I was saying about how sometimes you're at work and you might legitimately have this feeling like, I'm doing this for my family, but underneath it there might be this sense of, I'm also feeling a sense of achievement when I do this thing as well, and I get recognition and feel fulfilled.
Yeah, I think it was around achievement, and I guess having like a to-do list, being able to tick things off a to-do list and stuff like that. Like, so rather than being in the flow, and just going where the project goes or your work goes or what you actually feel inspired to do.
Yes.
We have a whole bunch of things on a to-do list, and we're constantly reminded of the things on that to-do list, and particularly the things that don't get ticked off that to-do list, we really get reminded about. And then there's just this pressure building and building and building type thing. Like, it's like, I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. I feel overwhelmed. I feel really stressed now. And I've noticed that, like, I've actually done a real experiment on myself over the probably last year or so, because I'm in Aries, and that's in the storyline. I'm in Aries. And I'm quite driven by different things. And a to-do list has, up till probably a year ago, really worked for me. Having a to-do list, ticking things off and powering through and all that sort of stuff. Don't particularly want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And something shifted somewhere along the way, and I just went, it's not working for me anymore. And then I'll sort of let it go, and I'll just go back in the flow, but then it starts to rise up again. Oh, it's not really structured type thing. Like, I don't feel like I'm really getting anywhere, and it's all just a bit all over the place. And so I've got a lot of stuff coming up in my head, so I'm just going to put it down on my to-do list again. And if I just get through those things, then that stuff will be done, and then I'll be sort of back in the flow again. So this is how I sort of tricked myself over the time. So I'd write a to-do list, and then I could just feel myself getting more and more stressed, and then it would start to spread out. So I'd be on Jodie's back. Well, you haven't done this, and I've asked you to do that, and you're not doing that. You're a Pisces, and I know you go really in the flow. So you don't have a to-do list. I know that. I'll write you a to-do list if you like, because I've actually got a fair few things that you'll need to be doing that's on my to-do list. So, and it was just ramping up and up and up. And I could just see these different things, and how we would then be butting heads. Everything would come to a halt. It was so stressful between us. And I was just like, oh my God, I've fallen back into this again. I've done it again. And it all started with one to-do list. Ridiculous. But it's still I realized that. Yeah, that's the thing. It was something so simple, just to get something down on paper, because out of my head. And I totally get that. And I'm not saying that you definitely shouldn't do that. I think that actually is really wise. But then what does that to-do list become? It's this, whether it's a sense of achievement or whatever it is you're looking for type thing, it's like, it has to be done this way. I have to do these things. I can't look at anything else because I'm way too busy already.
You feel that sense of obligation to
shutting everything down, and this sense of obligation, 100%. Yeah, and it's like, it's no longer enjoyable anymore. It's now, I have to do this.
Yeah, but this idea around that, there is that definite value to doing a brain dump sometimes, just getting everything out of your mind rather than it taking up this mental energy. No space for anything else to come in when it is. So there's definitely value in writing that stuff down, and whether that looks like a to-do list or it's just a brain dump of things that have to be done at some point in time. And yes, you can schedule them and do all that kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong with doing that if that fits into your life. But then it's when it there comes that point, then this is where it feels more like where the infinite comes in. It's like, then you have to let go of attachment to those things and how they're going to get done and when they're going to get done and the timing of them. So that's when we write this stuff down, and then the ego jumps in and goes, all right, now I have to control this.
Right, now I can do it. Yeah,
micromanage this to-do list because this means X about me. If I get these things done, if I don't get them done, then this means that about me. So there's all these stories that kind of start running out. Whereas if we just wrote everything down and we're able to kind of just step back and go, okay, well, it's out of my head now. It's not up to the
need to do all of these things.
There's a lot of that too. Yeah. But then you sort of go into that mode of, okay, well, this is the little me that's trying to do all those things on the to-do list. It's not the infiniteness coming now through me. So, okay, do the brain dump, get it onto the paper, and then let it go. It's kind of, and then do the thing in the moment as it presents. Because I don't know if you've ever noticed, I do this too. It's just like, you've got this thing in your mind. You think, oh, just don't forget that. Don't forget that. I've got to do that thing. Go do that thing. And then you forget about it because you don't write it down or you're busy. Yeah. And then it always pops in at the right moment of the time to do it. I don't know if you've noticed this and that too, but it's always just like you remember that thing just as you're about to walk into the shop that you might have thought 3 days ago, but you forgot to write down. And then as you walk in, it's like, oh, that's right, I had to get such and such. And it just pops in. Or you think, oh, that's right, I had to call so-and-so, and it's the perfect moment when you call them to say that thing because you had to wait for X to happen before you could have had that conversation, but you didn't know that at the time. It's that
you realize later, it's like, oh, that would have, I couldn't have done that any earlier.
Yeah, or like you wake up, like you might have forgot to set your alarm for something, but then somehow your body clock wakes you up at that time. It's just like weird stuff that
Few
kind of
minutes
happens. Like, there is that infinite part of you that knows what needs to happen in the moment when you kind of let go of that control of trying to make it happen. That's been my experience anyway. Yeah.
It's definitely been my experience. My other flip side experience of that is I'll have stuff on my to-do list and I will power through them. And then it gets afterwards, and it might be soon afterwards or later afterwards, that I didn't need to do that. Like we followed down that path of that project. Like, why did I do that entire sales page thinking I had to do that? And because it was on my to-do list.
Yeah.
And then we're not even going to use it. I was like, I could not tell you how many times that's happened.
Yeah.
Had I followed my intuition and just really trusted that and trusted that process that Mandy's just talking about, that it will tell you in the moment what you need to do or not do. And if I had followed that, I wouldn't have probably even done it. So I could have just saved myself all that heartache. So that has happened. And I think that started showing up a lot more. It's like, I had all these things on my to-do list. I did power through them and then realized that they were completely useless. Like I didn't need to do it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would have that experience. I definitely have. As you said, the majority of the things that you write on your list either don't have to be done or could be done by somebody else, but you feel like you have to be the one that
you have to do it
because you get something out of doing those things. So it's not definitely falling into that one. Take on the caretaker role and fixing the world all the time. So yes, so there's definitely value in having a to-do list, but then it's like that. I've heard people also reframe it saying it's like a to love, like things I get to do, like that I'd love to do, like you reframe a bit like that too, and only things go on there that you really want to be doing, that you're passionate about doing.
That you're passionate about,
yeah. And yes, okay, there's things in the moment that have to be done, like you've got to pick kids up from school, and you've got to there is
sort of
life that we all have to do. So yes, totally that there's practical stuff that has to go on a to-do list, but there is a lot of superfluous stuff that we put on there because ultimately we feel important, or we feel like sense of achievement if we get them done, or think it's
I think the achievement thing, I know for me it's all about achievement.
Achievement is a big one.
Is a big one for the to-do list.
Yes.
But it's sort of interesting, like the whole, when you break down all of that, is like, okay, why do you need to feel a sense of achievement? Whether it's from a to-do list or you've won a race or like whatever you've achieved, you've finished a project. It's sort of, what is that thing? And you could say that about all of these things, like why are you looking for recognition from your partner or acknowledgement, or through your work? Why do you feel security in money? Why are you looking for it in money type thing? What is it going to give you? And when you get underneath all of it and start breaking it down, it is that sense of love. Like you're looking for love. We're all seeking that. If our partner acknowledges us more and recognizes the work that I'm doing, then I feel loved by that person.
Yes.
If I get that at work and somebody acknowledges, a great project that I finished, or, a great presentation I did, or I make X number of sales for my company, I'm a sales rep and I make X number of sales, I'm going to feel loved by all the people around me. Like they're going to recognize me, and that feels really warm and loving to me.
Yeah.
And money, having that sense of security, like if I have X number of dollars in the bank, then there's this feeling of, I don't know, like this close, secure, warmth, energy that you could say, wow, I feel really loved right now. Like I feel that sense. And that's what we're doing. We're looking for that feeling in all these different things.
Safety. It is like that true sense of, the truest sense of safety in the world, like that can't be taken away, and that which is love, like it is that unconditional love is the truest form that will show up in, but the ego will never, ever be able to find that in the outside world. It can approximate it and come close to it, but it just can't. It's just because it perceives itself as separate, so it will never, ever know that true unconditional love in that form. So
and we talked about this the other day in terms of probably the closest approximation that we have is the love for a child or a love for a pet, an animal, like some part of nature.
Yes.
because of that sense of innocence that it had.
Yeah, it's complete unconditional love. There's no judgment coming back. There's no
unconditional love. Like, when a pet sees you, when you first walk in the door, you could have just been gone for like 5 minutes down the road to the grocery store, and you've come back, and it's like they've never seen you before. Like, they are so excited to see you that you're back. And it's like, that is the pure example of unconditional love from another living thing.
Yeah. Or you have to chastise them for something, and then 5 minutes later they come back over wagging their tail as if nothing's ever happened. It's that kind of don't hold a judgment.
And I guess that's why it really does hurt us so much when we hear stories of somebody that has been mistreated as a child, as a particular youngster. It's like, that's so upsetting to all of us, because it is that tainting of the unconditional love that we feel. It's like, that's just so wrong on every level.
Yes.
Or a pet being mistreated, an animal being mistreated, that just riles me up, something chronic, like.
Yeah.
And people get
when a pet dies, because obviously that happens a lot more just because of shorter lifespan, obviously, compared to a human lifespan. And some people say, I felt worse when my dog died than when my dad died. Like, I've heard multiple people saying that type of thing, and you sort of think they say, oh, that probably sounds really strange. And I'm like, no, I've kind of gone through what you're talking about. And I mean, not that our parents are still alive, but just that sense of, I can kind of go, there is that sense of loss on some level because of that unconditional love that you felt from that pet in that moment that you had, and you felt like you could be, I know it's a different relationship. It's not like you're having conversations and things like that, but it's that kind of sense of non-judgment and a total acceptance from unconditional love space. And that's what people resonate with, and that's why they feel such pain when that kind of goes away, because if they look out in their external world, they don't feel like they have that to that degree a lot of the time.
So many people we meet say, I just feel so much more connected to animals and pets. I'd much rather spend time with them than human beings. I was like, I get that. Like, it's like that you're seeking for that unconditional acceptance and love.
And then I think the part that starts to shift around is that when you do start to go on this journey of knowing yourself as the source of that, like your true self, where that starts to come through with you, then you can have those true connections on the outside with people around you and start to experience that unconditional love too. So it's not that it's not possible, it's just that we're coming at it from the wrong angle, most of the time. Like we're seeing it outside of us rather than us being the source of it, and it comes through us.
Don't put all the secrets away for tomorrow. No, you're right. It's very true, and that is a whole other conversation about how can you come at it from an infinite side. If you awoken to the infinite self, how would that look at this same situation right now? And I think that's something we should definitely touch on tomorrow, is like, how can you bring more of the infinite side of that into your everyday life, and how does that look? What do we do?
All right.
Cool. Well, I think that's a good wrap of how the ego deals with it. We've done a couple of days now of all sorts of scenarios and bits and pieces of how it's showing up from an ego standpoint. And hopefully you can see these different things, and perhaps in the comments pop in which one resonates for you the most, like which one you really feel that you're really driving towards. And we didn't bring it up today, but a lot of this deals with the 5 love languages. If you've read that book by Gary Chapman. Did I say Chapman? Yeah. So the 5 love languages actually are, I'll just quickly run through them because they are interesting. Quality time, physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, and giving of gifts. So you're both you're putting out your love language, so you'll identify with one of those things that you predominantly do.
Yes. You normally have a couple that are very prevalent for you.
Yeah. And you're also looking for what you're looking back, which usually is the stuff that you're putting out. So whatever you're putting out is actually what you're looking for. Yes. So, and then you'll start to identify, you can sort of look at those 5 things, you can start to identify where your partner does those things and why you might have different love languages. And so you're both talking pretty much a different language.
Yes.
So we'll talk more about this because I think it really is worth diving in and bringing in the egos dealing with those 5 live languages, because essentially that's what you're looking for.
Yes.
And it really is just talking about the ego again. Because I think it is, it's definitely worth a bit of a deep dive into those.
Yeah, I think so too. Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Let's do that then.
All right. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments if there's any questions you might have, or like as Nat said, where you might see yourself in any of these 5 areas that where the ego is looking for love outside of itself, and if you identify with any of those, it'd be great to hear.
I'll drop those love languages in the comments as well. So let us know which ones do you identify with the love languages, which ones are you putting out, which ones are you getting back from, say, your partner or your family, and which ego driver are you really associating with, like what really does drive you.
Yes.
And what scenarios have you got it playing out in? Is it in relationships? Are you doing stuff at work? Let's start getting some of that stuff out. So the whole idea of asking you these questions, and we are going to start doing this a little bit more in these sessions. And if you feel to, like, really do share, because share a story or share
or ask a question.
Ask that question, because it helps bring it out to your awareness. Then, like, it really is an exercise for you, not for anyone else. To then start being aware of where it's showing up, because then you'll start to break down those stories.
Yes.
Groovy. Lovely. All right. We look forward to reading everyone's little stories.
Yeah.
I'm losing my voice now, so I need to go. I'm blowing my voice.
Shall see you again tomorrow.
Yep. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Bye. See ya.